You're going to stand there owning a fireworks stand and tell me you don't have no whistling bungholes, no spleen splitters, whisker biscuits, honky lighters, hoosker doos, hoosker don'ts, cherry bombs, nitsy dazers, with or without the scooter stick, or one single whistling kitty chaser? Welcome in to the Bro Force Squad podcast, where we're just a bunch of bros drinking beer and talking movies. This is episode 118, and I am your host, the mayor, Jeff Hornacek. Thank you guys so much for checking us out. Tonight it's just a two-bro lineup. It is me and our enforcer in the paint, Matt Geiger. So before we get started, Geiger, I know you suffered a back injury yesterday, but just so the people know, you could still kick the shit out of anyone listening, right? Even in your current state.
Yeah, absolutely. I just played defense until you got tired, and by that time my back would heal, and then I'd kick your ass when you were tired. It's a simple cause and effect, really.
It's kind of like in the breakup when he goes, "You sent that asshole over here to attack me when I was hungover and weak."
Just to let everyone know, though, we do have two bros on here, but Jeff's in full uniform. I'm in Andrew Bynum 76ers like clothes on the sidelines, and I don't know if I'll get in the game.
And we're like, we just gave up 2 draft picks. Is he like ever gonna suit up? Because he looks fine.
Well, he is suited up technically, but he just doesn't have a jersey on.
The weird thing when he was hurt, he wasn't even like on the bench. Remember, he was like in the stands. I was like, this is not a good sign.
He did not care at all.
He's like in the fifth.
Awesome.
And I think he was even eating like a hot dog one time they showed him. He was like, oof, not looking good. All right, thank you guys for checking us out. Whether you have or haven't listened to our show before, we actually start every episode off with the most important thing in any bro's life, and that is chest day. So our chest day today is a little bit of an interesting topic here. So the mid/after credit scene is a bit of an art. Obviously, it teases future sequels, characters, story arcs, can even wrap up lingering plot lines from a film you just saw. And since its popularity has increased so much over roughly the past, I would say 10 to 12 years, kind of with the MCU, we've always wanted to go back and forth about the impact it has not only on the movie that we just watched, but what it could have done to films that never included one. So this is whether popular films from decades before that, like the after credit scene just was not a thing yet, or even ones that came out during that era and just chose not to include it for several different reasons. So what Matt and I are going to do tonight is throw our hat into the rings, as only the Bro Force Squad can, and go around and tell you a few of our ideas that are either incredible, ridiculous, or I guess incredibly ridiculous, for after-credit scenes that movies could and should have fucking added. So, Matt, I know you and I both have a couple. Why don't you go first? You, I believe, might have even been like episode 2. You introduced a great after-credit scene for, was it The Dark Knight Rises? Do you remember that one?
We'll get to that.
Okay, not to steal your thunder. Sorry.
First off, I think this one should have happened, and it's Point Break. And the after-credit scene should just be like a storm just comes off into shore and Bodhi just like comes to the sand and then someone like gives him CPR. He's like, "Where am I?" And they're like, "New Zealand, sir." That would have been fucking badass. And you could have had a Point Break too, which would have been fucking sick.
So Bodhi is so strong he can survive like a hurricane sweeping him up across the Pacific Ocean. That would be awesome.
Basically, he went from California to New Zealand, and he's like, all he needed was like literally 2 pumps on the chest, a little breath of air in his lungs, and he was like fucking perfectly fine. That would have been fucking badass. That was in the 90s, though, like way before any of that. This is the next one, and this is for you, Banner, and Nate Thurman. So, No Country for Old Men. Some of y'all don't like the ending.
Yeah, but sorry, before you get into it, Nate Thurman, this is his all-time, maybe like least favorite movie ending of all time.
Well, I'm going to better it for him. So the after credit scene is back in Tommy Lee Jones's kitchen, and he goes, and that's it. That's how it ends.
So they like reel you back in, like, no.
Yeah, you're like, Casey Thurman, like, wait a second, they're actually gonna make this right. And he just breathes like, that's even worse than what you did before. At least you said
like,
something.
He's like standing in the side of the theater where you leave with his arms crossed. He's like, I'm gonna give this one more chance, but I swear to God, I'm asking for our money back if I don't like how this ends.
I would love how that would just dick tease everyone that would be pissed off at that ending. They're like, okay, that's actually less than you. Why would you even do that? Why would It's got to be, though, Tommy Lee Jones has to have like a fake mustache or something for a different role. Like they called him back to do reshoots just for that scene.
It'd be like the Cavill Justice League situation.
Yes. And I have 2 DC ones since the DCU is so fucked right now. And I think this could have saved it, Jeff. So Man of Steel comes out, and we're all kind of rumored.
When the DCEU started, and again, they don't have to copy Marvel directly, but just as its own thing, I was really hoping / wishing they would do after credit scenes. They did one for Suicide Squad, I know, but I always thought it would be cool for superhero movies. League. Yeah. Wait, what's the Justice League one? That's like the best one ever. Yeah,
that was fucking badass. So Man of Steel, which actually I still think is a good movie, but afterwards they needed to have basically a LexCorp truck pull up and like a huge fucking one of those, wooden boxes that are huge wheeled up to the door. And once they open it, it's just this green glow. And a butler answers the door, and it's Michael Caine. And then he just gets on his phone. And he's like, Master Wayne, the package has arrived. And you're like, holy shit, this fucking connects to Nolan's, which would have saved fucking everything, I think. Just because they'd kind of know where to go. Everyone would have excused some of the shit on BVS. And we already would have had a Batman that would have made a lot of sense because he says no killing, but then he's like, dude, I'm going to have to kill this guy in order to fucking like save the fucking planet. And I liked how we got Ben Affleck, but then, the writing and Josh Whedon, that's another topic for another time. But just having a Batman that we already loved and getting in that story arc, I think it would feel so much more real when Superman comes to Earth because we have a realistic, like, Gotham pretty much. And then an alien comes to Earth and fucks it all up.
Yeah, I mean, Bruce's whole arc in BVS is like, he never admits it, but he's scared shitless after what he saw from Superman. Like that's what basically caused him to go off the deep end. Only problem would have been, what did we do with that Joseph Gordon-Levitt ending? But I guess you could easily work around that. Like Bruce comes back, he's like, this is my cave, move.
So here is, I think, my best one. Joaquin Phoenix, the Joker. After credit scene. It's him and I can't remember the actress's name, the African-American lady that supposedly he was dating, but it was all in his head. Yes. So there's an after credit scene where he walks in and they were actually together. They had sex and she gave birth to a child. And she hands the child to Joaquin Phoenix and he looks and smiles at it. Then he does like this crazy frown and he looks at the child and says, why so serious? So that child would be Heath Ledger. And that would all connect.
Fuck.
If that would have happened in theaters, I'm already tingling just saying that. I'd be like, what the fuck?
Dude, what if he made a joke while he has the baby? He's like, your father is a drinker and a fiend. It's like, that's exactly how you described. Oh my God, dude. That's awesome.
That's like my best one. This is why I should write for, like, I should be with Warner Brothers right now. They should hire me.
Did that come to you in like a dream?
I've thought about that for a while. I'm just like, man, like, because Heath Ledger's stories were so all over the place. You don't know what one was real and what one wasn't. But you're like, man, like the whole time Joaquin Phoenix, I'm like, it kind of sets up because when Heath Ledger in The Dark Knight was maybe 24, he was about the same age I was. This was taking place in the 80s. I was born in 88. It match up pretty close.
Is fine, yeah. Because Heath's character could be anywhere from like 24 to 31 in that movie,
Yeah. You can't really tell because of makeup and shit. But that'd been fucking sick because you're like, okay, the Joker is, I don't know, man. It's, it's like a Dallas Cowboy or something. Like every century has its own like greatest on the team or something like that. I think it'd be fucking badass.
Greatest thing now, just because of your 2 post-credit scenes, now you've bridged Joker to the Nolan Batmans to the DCEU.
Yeah, it's all connected. And they would have thrown the fans for a complete loop, thinking that they don't know what they're doing, but actually, like, everything that we've ever done connects. It would have been badass.
Why can't we live in that universe?
Now it's unsalvageable. Even if they called me right now, like, Geiger, we need your help. I'm like, I can't.
I have work.
Save your money. Yeah, save your money.
You can't afford me. Like, what? But I think we can.
Sorry to end on that one because you gotta upstage that one.
That's
So which
tough
will
to
leave
top.
left hitter?
All right, I have three. Two are serious. The first one, and again, this is probably going to ruin the movie for some people because people love ambiguous endings. And this is a Nolan film that I'm about to add the post-credit scene to. And I'll be very honest. Outside of Dunkirk and the Batman trilogy, like Interstellar and Inception, I think are just too smart of movies for me. Like when I watch them, I enjoy elements of them, but at the end, I'm like, okay, now you're making me feel like I'm fucking stupid. You know, it's like that dude that just read an article on something. You're like, yeah, but you don't really know that much. You just read a fucking article of
It's
that.
pretty much in 5th grade when you had to read a chapter and then take a quiz, and you read a chapter and it took you an hour, and then literally you're like, I don't remember one fucking thing I read. That's pretty much how I feel when I watch Interstellar. I couldn't even tell you what I just saw.
I don't know which one makes me feel dumber, Inception or Interstellar. Probably whichever one I saw most recently, because they're all so like this antiquated theory on like how the universe or our dreams work. But the end of Inception, excuse me, obviously is Leo spinning the top. What do they call? I can't remember what they call the things that they each carry that lets them know if they're in a dream or not.
I don't.
Like one of them has like a
I
dice.
saw that movie literally once, and I was thinking, I love every actor in this, but I don't think this one's for me.
Right. So Leo's top, if you guys haven't seen Inception, I would skip ahead like a minute because I'm going to spoil the ending. But Leo has this like spinner that he spins, and if it falls, then he knows that he's not in a dream anymore. He's in the real world, because in the dream world, it would just spin forever and ever. And the way that the movie ends is he spins the top, and it maybe starts to wobble, and then the movie just cuts and ends. So it's sort of ambiguous. You're like, is he stuck in a dream forever, or is he actually back in real life? How about an after-credit scene where the thing falls, and we actually get an answer to it? I mean, that way I don't go home the whole drive home. It's not like quiet, and then every 30 seconds I go, what? I'm like trying to figure shit out, and then we like, I don't know. It still hurts my head thinking about it. I'm dumb that maybe I need an answer, but I don't think I'm alone with that one.
No, it's like the artist that only draws half the portrait. It's like, even though it's half done, it's finished. I'm like, that makes no fucking sense at all. But that's just because I don't know. If you don't get it, you don't understand it. It's that fucking simple.
The complete painting is in and of itself incomplete. Fuck. I don't want to be around you anymore.
Because us as humans are, in fact, incomplete beings, so we're never finished.
No, totally, yes. That's fun.
Yeah, for sure.
So that might
you talk like that, though, at a party, I guarantee you get laid.
Yeah, there's like 4 girls that are like, he's so interesting. Like, okay, you give that like an hour and a half and 2 more glasses of red wine and we'll see. Okay? So that's Inception. Again, that one might actually ruin the movie for some people. Now I'm going to lighten the mood up a little bit. I have one for Rookie of the Year.
Yes.
Of course, the classic movie from the 90s where the kid pitches for the Chicago Cubs after breaking his arm. Now, the reason I picked this one, the after credit scene in the 90s was like such a foreign concept. Like no one even knew what it was, really. Like Back to the Future did it once, and I know that movie, I think that's like an 89 film. Mm-hmm. But it was really just like showing you the sequel. It was never like teasing the possibility of something.
Yeah.
So here's my Rookie of the Year one. And this, to me, sounds so 90s, so realistic. So Henry Rowan Gardner is playing youth soccer with his friends, and he gets slide tackled pretty hard, fractures his ankle. Cut to him in a hospital bed watching Morton Anderson miss a 45-yard field goal with the Vikings against the Chicago Bears. The same doctor from the beginning of the movie comes in with his x-ray of his ankle, and he says, Mr. Rowan Gardner, I think we found something again in your x-ray. And Henry turns to the camera, and he's like, oh, yeah? And then it cuts. Obviously, setting him up to be the kicker of the Bears in the sequel with like a fucked up leg from his broken ankle.
What about the third one? He breaks his dick and then becomes like the greatest porn star ever, and it's just a porno.
Setting me up for it, exactly. The problem with that is I think this movie already was like walking this fine line, but I don't know about you. When I left Rookie of the Year, I was like, I kind of want to break my fucking arm.
Yeah, you just want to break things. So it comes back stronger.
Right, and you're like, well, if it happens to him twice, I mean...
If it was Tommy John surgery, it'd be almost true. But it wasn't. It was just a broken arm.
The key is like the guy missing the field goal, so it's like clearly there's a need for Henry now in the league. It's like, this is so dumb. Like, why would you? But That one I think could
I
have
like
action
it.
thing.
It's the Airbud philosophy, where basically the dog is like the Bo Jackson of sports, so you can play pretty much any sport. Golden Retriever is one of the greatest movie titles ever.
Oh my god! And then he played soccer. I think he was World Pup.
Yep.
Some shit like that. How long does this dog live? Is what I got.
You know that took like 4 hours in a meeting to come up with that. They got like a bullet pointed list. I'm like,
cut to the meeting. There's like a half-eaten box of pizza in the middle of the room. People are like pacing around. Like, we need this by 4:00. It's not gonna write itself.
Pup's a winner. Like, do you think kids are that dumb? Like, yeah, too.
I think kids are that really fucking stupid, Chris. In fact, I got a couple plays on this that we could. Seventh inning fetch was another one I was going to suggest, but I know we shot that. That actually is one too, though.
I know. There's like 8 of these. It's insane.
I remember seeing all these at Family Video and Blockbuster. All right, my last one. This is going to be yours and Cycly's favorite. Okay, this is for Star Wars Episode 3: Revenge of the Sith.
Oh my god.
It's a Star Wars has never done an after credit scene, but this one would have rocked the fucking universe, okay? So at the very end, Luke goes to Tatooine, Leia goes to Alderaan, all that stuff. Cuts back up to Vader, staring out a window, dismayed over the loss of Padme. The Emperor's with him. He, is standing next to him, staring out into space. Emperor walks back into a private room, doors closed. He hits a button. A hologram hooded figure pops up. And the Emperor says, Master, everything is going according to plan. And the hooded figure says, Misa liking this.
Jar Jar is over the Emperor?
It's Darth Jar Jar, bro.
So are you saying Jar Jar is probably Darth Plagueis?
He's probably like even above Plagueis. But the hooded figure says to the Emperor, Misa liking this. I mean, worlds would have been rocked.
Cycly would have standed up and clapped in a bunch of people's faces that were like booing. It's like, finally, it makes sense.
He'd be like, it took balls to do that. See that? George Lucas just took his nuts out and set him on the table.
I thought the Emperor was going to open and then his wife was going to say, it's like, not today, Martha, I've had a day. My apprentice almost burned to death. And then you got fucking Rey's dad fucking running around on his tricycle.
He's like, oh, good to know you made pot roast again. It's been 2 days. Can we mix up the meals?
I control the galaxy all damn day. I don't have time to play catch with our son.
I'm just curious. You know I have high cholesterol. Why do we eat red meat 3 times a week?
I would give anything to see basically just like a rom-com of the Emperor and his wife with Rey's dad as like a 4-year-old kid. I'd give anything for it.
What about a sitcom? It could be called like All in the Empire, where all it is, it's nothing with Star Wars. It's Palpatine just when he gets home every night.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
And he's like missing his kids' like plays and dance recitals and shit.
Rey's dad with his math homework.
Yeah, and his wife.
I'm gonna talk to your teacher.
It's basically like Boy Meets World, except Corey's dad is like the Emperor. Like, it can focus on.
I would love that. I guarantee you'd have 5 people watch it, and they're all on this pod. We would watch it every week. We'd fucking review it. I guarantee you.
That would be incredible. That's what. Hey, Star Wars needs a win. I mean, I know the Mandalorian. I know. That's easy money.
What if they called it Papa-Teen?
Oh, that's pretty good. A Star Wars story. The plot lines are endless. It could start like right after A New Hope, so he's dealing with like he's working longer hours because the Death Star just got blown up. They have to rebuild it. All right, we have derailed.
Okay. Yeah. So fun to think about.
Good work, Matt. Yours were serious, and then I, of course, had the ultimate.
I mean, I don't know if Point Breaks was really serious, but yeah, sure.
I mean, if anybody can survive just being swept up across an entire ocean, it's Patrick Swayze. So I wouldn't put it past him.
But you could think, was he in New Zealand or heaven? It'd be like a lost thing.
Some people might not even argue there's a difference.
Yeah, it's true.
All right. Second part of our show.
It all equals out, yeah.
Second part of our show is our protein shake, where we go around and talk about what's in our cup, also known as what have we watched lately. Matt, this week is a cool week because there's actually two things our guests are going to do mini reviews on that overlapped. I have two other things, one that I'll only talk about very briefly, but is there anything else you watched aside from the two things we shared?
I don't really think that I want to talk about. I really want to just devote my time into Labor of Love and the newest 30 for 30, which was fantastic.
Perfect. Oh, God. Okay. Two things I watched. Cycly and I did our commentary on Saw 4. We're already up to the fourth one. We do one every Halloween. So this is playing the long game tease because you won't get to listen to that at home until October. Sorry about you. Thing I love about the Saw movies, they're very short, and Cycly and I somehow have a take on, like, we don't like the traps. We like the story, which I think is kind of a unique perspective. And as always, we get drunk by about the 40-minute mark and things digress. One other thing I watched that I absolutely loved is the Anna Kendrick HBO Max original show, Love Life. This was kind of like their, it's not a perfect analogy, but their Mandalorian. It was like, hey, if you subscribe to the service, this is like the first original content we're going to roll out for you. It's like a 10 episodes, 30-minute. It's basically just like a look at someone living in New York traversing like modern day relationships. It was probably like 65% drama, 35% comedy.
So basically Sex in the City.
Yeah, but without the annoying like characters.
Okay.
Like, it wasn't like Miranda and Samantha. It was basically like Anna. I think the thing I liked about it was it's Anna Kendrick. It's like the different guys she dated, and I just loved all the different guys.
It's like, hard to hate Anna Kendrick.
Yeah. Although I found out this past week Banner has some issues with her, which we'll bring up next podcast. Put her in the Brie Larson prison of You're Never Getting Out, because Banner hates them.
Okay.
But Love Life I cannot recommend highly enough. Fiance and I binged through it. Again, 10 30-minute episodes. We watched it in like 4 or 5 nights. It was that good. So if you have HBO Max and you haven't watched Love Life, get on it. Although if you have HBO Max and also use a fucking Fire Stick or Roku, you still can't watch it. I had to triple jailbreak my Fire Stick to watch it because fuck you, HBO. Still haven't worked the deal out. And based on my internet research, it doesn't seem like one is close. So not wrong. All right, Matt, which of these two do you want to talk about first?
Let's just do the 30 for 30 first because I'm just salivating at this. This was Long Gone Summer. Something that I'm surprised it took this long to talk about. Something that I'm glad it was 2 hours. Can't believe this wasn't maybe not a Last Dance, but maybe at least 3 to 5 episodes because there's a lot of stuff I think they didn't get into or they just were really short on, like the steroids, but we'll get to that later. This is my overall thought, and then we can kind of get into the semantics of this. I really enjoyed this. Don't really have anything bad to say about it. I'll leave that for you, Jeff. And here's why. 2 hours before this came on, I was bitching at baseball because they can't get their shit together to have a season. But when baseball's here, we bitch about fucking air. Like, we can't have nice things. I would rather live in naive 1998 when really no one really thought these people were on steroids until someone looked in McGuire's locker and found something that, let me remind you, Andrew was not banned by baseball at that time at all. So he was free to take it if he wanted to. There's no rules in taking it. He was fully of his rights to take it. I also feel bad for Sosa. Dude, Sosa, and say what you want with the cork back. I mean, he was a piece of shit. Don't get me wrong. But he brought Cubs baseball back to Chicago. They weren't fucking shit back then at all. And they still weren't shit until the Steve Bartman thing where they were almost kind of close to the World Series and they finally won one a couple years ago. But he was, I would say, Mr. Cub. I know Ernie Banks is Mr. Cub, but to us, he's Mr. Cub. If I think of Cubs, I think of Sosa. And him not invited back to Wrigley Field is a fucking shame. I mean, McGuire's in the Cardinals Hall of Fame, which at the end of the day, man, these guys were both great baseball players. I feel like McGuire, I don't know how long he was on the juice. I would say he's the greatest home run hitter ever. I think Tony Gwynn's or Bonds are the best hitters ever, but McGuire is the best home run hitter ever. And Sosa's a great player as well. We got Griffey in this. I'll throw it to you first, but this is my semantics over it. I just wish we could have nice things without people just ripping everything apart. Maybe it's just because I've been living in 2020 for over 6 months now. But can't we just see the bright side of things? Yeah, they're on steroids, but God, this is the funnest. This is the last time I had fun watching baseball.
It's kind of interesting because I actually agree with everything you just said. And I think my points will actually trigger some interesting thoughts from you. So first off, before I get into all of this, let me just say this. I absolutely loved the 1998 season. I love that whole era of baseball.
Yes.
Do I care that these players were on steroids? No, I don't give a fuck. It was so much fun. And we all know why baseball did it. Because after the strike-shortened season, as we may be leading towards now, people were like, dude, fuck you. Like, you just, in the middle of a season, upped and called things, and I'm just supposed to come back to the ballpark? No. So that's my thoughts on that. Now, having said the other thing that we've talked about a little bit on this podcast, all these players, well, most of them, like the Clemenses, the Bonds, Sosa, McGuire, incredible players. I don't think steroids tarnish their legacy. I just think when you go back and look at like individual records, like Roger Maris's record, it does need to be, an asterisk does need to be there because they still would be Hall of Famers. McGuire would still have 500 home runs. Just to do that in a single season, he had a little bit of help. Now, here's my thoughts. This documentary, I think, should have been done in two parts, kind of like that. Is it the Commonwealth versus? You remember that story about the guy who like killed himself and his girlfriend was to blame?
Yeah, and the chick told him to. That's a yes.
And they did one part for each.
Fuck my 5 episode. It's the good and the bad. That's right. Okay. Yeah.
That's what this needed because to me now when you do it in this method where the word steroid I don't even think is mentioned until the last 15 minutes. Yep. And they do the best job they can in that short period of time. But now it looks like we're living in this fantasy world and also like there was some talk they did steroids. When in actuality to me that part is just as interesting and the fallout, and we could even do it from the standpoint of like how unfair it is that these guys are pariahs like Sosa. Everybody probably knew he was on the juice. The Cubs benefited from it. And now all of a sudden when it looks good in the PR to never fucking let him back in Wrigley Field.
All the jersey sales they profited on, all the fucking tickets, all the the TV rights and shit. These games weren't just on WGN, they were on Baseball Tonight.
Big Mac Land for the Cardinals, same deal, right?
I think well, they got a new stadium now. I don't know if that's still there or not.
But if Kerry Wood wasn't pitching that night, like there was probably no other reason to go to a Cubs game except Sosa was doing this. So I think it's really unfair that the players it was a culture thing. Like I wrote down here, where's the number? 106 players tested positive for steroids that year. So it's like, what are we talking about? You know, like it was a pervasive thing in baseball. And I think that's my issue with the documentary is for 85 to 90% of it, we just act like, man, it was just this magical season. Yep. But I think the other thing that does kind of bother me about it is, so Griffey was in the race for a while, and we're obviously huge Griffey fans. I still think
he was for a really long while, actually. I mean, he was like 8 behind, but since he went on roids, he wasn't hitting 22 home runs in June. Can you believe that for Sosa?
No, because you have like 26 games.
I don't even care if you're on the juice. That's fucking impressive.
Right.
I don't even care if you're on.
Griffey was playing center field every day, which is a much more taxing position than first base and right field. Yeah. But I don't like how they just, and it's even like the reporters that they're talking to, they're like, I don't know what happened to Griffey, bro. He just like wore down in July. Yeah. I was like, you don't know what happened to Griffey? Maybe because he wasn't injecting shit into his ass every 5th day. He got a little tired from the natural fatigue.
One thing I'll say about, just real quick to interject, when you said magical season, I will still argue this is the most magical season I've ever seen, and this is why. Take the steroids out of it. This made baseball, golf, and this made baseball Sunday at the Masters. Yep. This made baseball like basketball when LeBron and Steph go back and forth. So LeBron dunks one, then Steph hits a 3. Sunday at the Masters when Brooks Koepka takes the lead, but then you cut to the screen and Tiger fucking rolls in a birdie from 30 feet to take back the lead. It was the back and forth. You never get that in baseball. If it is, it's more like a team wins and then next day the team wins and they're tied for the wild card. But this was literally, I remember in my parents' basement, growing up in the Midwest at this time, I got every Cubs game, I got every Cardinals game, and I got every Braves game. But I remember like baseball cutting back and forth. Like you'd be watching the Braves Mets, and they'd be like, "We interject this because McGuire's hitting
for every
and
at
then
bat.
We interject this because Sosa's hit every fucking at bat." And this is the other thing with Roger Maris, and a historian I am on the 1960. I don't know if you know this, but it was 1961. He hit 61 and 61 with him and Mantle. It was a back and forth for a while, but the last month and a half of the season, Mantle wasn't even there. He was hurt. It was just Roger versus Babe Ruth. This was definitely 2, sometimes 3 with Griffey people both chasing Babe Ruth and Roger Maris's record. That's fucking insane.
McGuire even says, I don't know if I would have got the record if Sammy wasn't pushing me, you know?
That, like, and I totally forgot growing up as a Cardinals fan. I remember when McGuire got the record. That was must-see TV. I remember watching the game. But I forgot afterwards Sosa tied him. I forgot all about that. And then McGuire's like, damn, like, I want to win this. I don't want to beat the record and then have Sammy beat me in home runs and get the record.
You know what's crazy, though? I don't know. This was like one of the things right when they went to commercial. You know, they did like a little trivia. Did you see the one where it said how many days that season did Sosa lead the home run race?
No.
And it was 0. He was tied with McGuire like 6 times, but he never had more home runs than him, which is pretty crazy. A few other things I want to bring up real quickly. And Geiger, I think you'll love this, but Bob Costas, who I actually thought was awesome in this.
Yes.
Sometimes he can be
awesome in everything he's in.
But he had some really good points. So he said, I think this was towards the end, and he's like he really respects like the history of baseball.
Yep.
He said, well, a lot of people say so-and-so when I was growing up didn't take steroids, but they weren't around. It wasn't an option. I'm like, yeah, dude, what are you talking about? That'd be like saying like, well, I didn't cheat on you during summer camp, and your girlfriend's like, you were with all guys. So what do you if steroids were around when Roger Maris and Babe Ruth played, we know the kind of characters some of these guys had. Like, you want to tell me none of them would have dabbled in that? Come on.
And I'll second that by saying, well, what if Babe Ruth took steroids? He would have hit 100. I'm like, not necessarily, because the pitchers would have been taking steroids too. So it could have evened out.
Yeah, exactly. I think that it levels out the whole playing field. One other thing I thought of, and this is just like hard for me to watch as someone who like likes money. So Todd McFarlane, the guy who actually invented Spawn, he bought.
This is an interesting point.
He bought the McGuire ball for $2.6 million, and that was, I think, a really cool way to open the documentary with him. Yeah. But he was talking about how he was on the phone with the person they're bidding for him, and he was like, I was trying to tell her, just leave the paddle up. Yep. So he bought the ball for $2.6 million, and this fucking kid in the grounds crew just gave it back to McGuire. Yeah. Like, okay, you got to go on Letterman,
Mr.
dude.
McGuire, I think this belongs to you. I'm just like, what the fuck, dude?
I wanted to throw up in my mouth when he did that. I was like, you dumbass.
Do you think someone said, if you don't give this to him, you're fired? I'm like, cool, I'm on grounds crew. This is worth millions of dollars. See you later.
I will never work again in my life with this ball. I would have just not even, once I got the ball, I would have just left the stadium. You know?
Also, I have to say one thing. I wish this would have happened in '97 because it would have been really cool to hear Jack Buck and Harry Carey cover this. Harry Carey died the season before, but you still got Jack Buck, which, I mean, as a kid growing up in the Midwest, Jack Buck is God.
He's like, the man. So they had Chip Carey on, but they didn't have Joe Buck on, which I thought was kind of surprising.
He called the McGuire's the one that beat Maris that barely got over the line. He called that Joe Buck did, because him and his dad. So Jack was on the Cardinals radio network, and Joe was calling it for Fox Sports. And that was before Joe called. That was before Joe called before he called football. Before he's in the U.S. Open now. Like he is, I mean, big time now. But I don't even think many people knew him. I always knew him as Jack Buck's son, just because I grew up in the Midwest. But that's another thing that just the historic. I mean, it couldn't have happened. Like, dude, this couldn't have happened on the Montreal Expos. Like, it had to have been Yankees, Red Sox, Cubs. It had to have been one of those historic teams,
right,
that had, the home run race. And you got it. Busch Stadium and Wrigley Field. Those are two great places to have it.
So that's pretty much all I had. I think the only thing I didn't like was that it felt like it disproportionately talked about the season and not the fallout. And again, I'm not one of these people that wants to sit here and berate these guys and say they suck because they took steroids. I just think it is a huge part of the story, and I think this could have benefited a lot from two parts. One last thing I want to bring up, maybe the most bro thing we've seen in anything in a while. McGuire sitting there with his Hurley hat on in the hotel room, arms crossed, talking about how he just had to divorce his wife because he only wanted to focus on hitting home runs.
Yep. To get more chicks, probably.
Chicks dig the long ball. Yeah, he's basically cheating
as a baseball fan, and you could talk, I'm sure we can answer this for Banner too. Say tomorrow, Manfred says baseball's coming back and there's no more drug tests, no more rules. Would you watch the same, more, or less?
More.
Yeah. I think everyone would.
It'd be like their version of the XFL.
The only reason people care about this is because people just want something to point at and say, oh, that's not real, that's not good enough. And I'm like, dude, just enjoy. That was one of the most, that is the best baseball season I've ever seen in my entire life. And I've been, when I grew up in the Midwest, I've seen like 4 World Series, but that was so much fucking fun. The Cardinals didn't even make the playoffs that year.
That's the thing. People talk about, oh, it's such a long season. How do you keep it entertaining? That's how you make it entertaining.
It was the most entertaining thing I've ever fucking seen. It was just back and forth. Like, and at the early stages, they had Griffey. I think that was when Juan Gonzalez hit like 150 RBIs that season or something.
RBIs at the All-Star break, Juan Gun did. It's just so fucking dumb.
But it was, who cares? It was fun to watch. Like, and you're telling me with the NFL now just wanting to be PlayStation, like that Chiefs-Rams game that was just back and forth. That's fun to watch, man. Yeah. Like fucking juice. And the thing is, I think you could juice these guys up without having long-lasting damage now. I think we got the drugs now that you could actually take, if you cycle on and off of them, that you'll be fine. Why not let them do it? Fuck it.
One other thing, kind of unrelated. This is when I really knew, like, oh, yeah, the steroids, like, obviously it does not affect your ability to hit a baseball. But if you have the raw talent and hand-eye coordination that a Mark McGuire has and you're on the juice, like, special things are going to happen. That series, I think it was like their second to last, maybe not, last series of the year, where they were at Miami playing the Marlins.
Yeah.
Some of those pitches he was hitting out.
Yeah.
If I'm a pitcher, I'm like, one of them was like 4 inches low.
Yeah.
And he golfs it to dead center. And also, how funny was it watching those people in where the fucking Dolphins and Marlins play, like run across the tarped center field?
Yeah.
Seat? It's the most pathetic thing I've ever seen.
I'll say this is what I believe steroids does to players. Is a baseball player, say they play 162 of the games, they're only about 90 to 100% of maybe 80 of, probably half. Well, you're 90 to 100% to probably like 70, 80% of the game. So obviously your numbers are going to go up. Like that just is. Now steroids also, the stronger you are, a little off the center of the bat or something that is a pop fly could maybe go out. And I mean, every sport's a game of inches, man. And all those inches up from 50 home runs. I mean, McGuire, I guess, I didn't know this. The season before, hit 58. That's what they said.
I didn't know that either.
Like, he hit like a fucking ton. And that was the first year the Cardinals got him. Very interesting.
I mean, the argument for steroids, and again, I'm not like, I don't want these guys to have damage to their bodies, but it was fun to watch. Like, let's just be realistic. But the argument where guys are like, oh, I just used it to recover faster. I'm like, yeah, but that's still a massive advantage.
Yeah, it is. But you can't sit there and tell me that that's the problem with these people. They just want to have the conversation. They took steroids. They're cheaters. I'm like,
right.
So they shouldn't be are you telling me Barry Bonds and A-Rod and them shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame? I even think Sosa should be in the Hall of Fame. McGuire should probably be in the Hall of Fame.
I wish they were in the Hall of Fame, but I do think we need to note some of the records, like, differently. But still,
don't put them in the Hall of Fame because of the record. Just put them. I mean, they were good fucking ball players, man.
Exactly. I totally agree. I mean, all these guys prior to steroids would have been Hall of Famers.
What they did for the fucking game. I mean, they made baseball sexy again, and it's not sexy anymore. It's just
I've never liked how Selig was just like, oh my God, they did what? Like, you knew something was going on. Just admit that you both benefited from it. Like, I just hate how he always.
Did you love the Congress scene? When I'm like, back in '98, shouldn't we have been worried about like systemic racism and police brutality. We could have fucking fixed that back then, but no, we want to make sure McGuire isn't taking Andro. That's legal in baseball. Like, what the fuck are we doing here?
We could almost do a whole episode just on that Capitol Hill hearing, because was it McGuire that said, "I'm not here to talk about the past"? And I'm like, that's literally the only reason we
about the future.
Called.
Like, well, we have no questions about the future. All we have is about past.
Yeah, I'm not Dr. Emmett Brown. I want to know about these things that happened.
Waving his finger at him.
That was incredible, dude.
I still don't believe he took. I hate that people say he took steroids. He might have taken something that's banned, but he didn't shoot up his ass. There's no way. I'll never believe that.
Rafi?
Yeah. Look at his body. There's no fucking way.
He didn't look like ripped. He didn't look like the rest of those guys. I did love, it was pretty interesting, just my last thoughts, when they cut to George Bush at the presidential debate, and they're like, what's the biggest failure you've had in your professional life? He was like, I traded Sammy Sosa for Harold Baines.
Yeah, he should have asked, like, are you going to take steroids in the next couple years? Because if so, we'll keep you in Texas.
I love when Sosa, has that base hit, his first base hit with the Rangers, and last year in Double-A in 110 games, he had 7 home runs. I'm like, oh, God, that's not good to hear that. He was seeing the ball well, Matt.
Well, what was the publicist said? He's like, yeah, that season before, Sammy really decided to eat healthier and hit the weights, and that's why he hit 66 home runs.
Jesus Christ.
Just destroyed Maris's record.
Yeah, I started eating a little more grilled chicken. Like, what? I don't think that's but okay. One thing, again, not to harp on this, but it would have been interesting because they had Maris's son was in it a lot. And he was very complimentary. I think just because of
Maris was a Cardinal at the end too. That's why him and Mike Shannon are such good friends.
So, yeah, that's right. They did briefly mention that. But I would like to get his take on like the aftermath, because obviously McGuire was so gracious and kind to the family during all of it. But how does his son feel? Because now your dad, I mean, there are probably kids that are never going to know the name Roger Maris. And now Bonds obviously changed all that too later, but it's kind of an interesting thing if he's thinking about his dad's legacy and how the fallout of the 98 season affected it.
So the last two things I'll say is, one, I will say this did more to bump up Maris than anything, because I didn't even know who had the home. I thought it was Hank Aaron, and I was like, oh yeah, he has all-time home runs, not just in a season. And two, there were 2 scenes. One with McGuire hitting a home run, and the other was Sosa, and the guy chasing the ball was Barry Bonds. And I could just see Barry Bonds in the outfield be like, I'm more talented than both these guys. I know what they're doing. And he's just like, fuck it, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, I could see why Bonds he's like, because he is head and shoulders more talented than Sammy Sosa McGuire.
Yes.
Him and Griffey, you could maybe have a conversation with, but Barry Bonds is a fucking stud. And he's like, dude, if I did that, I could probably hit 70. And he did. He hit like 72. He
got walked with the bases loaded intentionally twice that year. That's literally like, we're going to give you a run because you're just going to
like Banner and slow pitch. You don't want to face Banner.
And then Banner yells at the pitcher, coward.
Yeah. He just drops his bat and his arm sleeve thing that Bonds has on to protect him from, so he could just fucking be all over the plate.
Banner actually used to have an arm sleeve thing he wore for our slow pitch games. It was pretty cool.
I believe it.
And he had a bandana he wore for flag football. He was the intimidator, like I said. You'd show up and be like, oh, God, they have a guy that like takes it that seriously. Look out. All right, anything else on Long Gone Summer?
No, let's go to Labor of Love. Comment below if there's any other podcast you listen to that goes from 30 for 30 to Labor of Love. There can't be another one on YouTube. There's no way.
That's what you get here. This is a protein shake this week where it's like reality television.
Orbit on the highway.
God, we're all over the place. That's what we do best. All right, Labor of Love. If you, what's this, episode 4 now? And this thing's got to be like it's on the home stretch now. But if you guys have not seen this reality TV show, jump in. You're not too late. It's on Fox. It's only an hour long every Thursday. And Matt, tell them what the basic premise is.
So Christy is a lady from Chicago. She's like 41, I believe. Charlotte from Sex and the City is like your host. And
but she's
Christy
hardly ever in it. It's like, why?
Yeah, she's in it. All she does is say the exact same thing during elimination time. It's kind of annoying. But Christy, she doesn't want to date. She doesn't want a husband. She basically wants to skip all that, get married, and go right to having kids. So once she picks the guy, they're going to just start trying to get her pregnant because her clock's fucking ticking and shit needs to be going in and growing in there. So they test their sperm sample. there's a lot of interesting things on this though, Jeff, that like the houses side by side, which I like. I hope there's some shit that The Bachelor actually picks up. I love how the eliminations are on the TV screen and the guys can see not really what she's talking about, but they can see who she's talking about.
Yeah.
And if she's taking a long time to put them in, let's talk, or I want to keep dating and stuff. There's a lot of interesting things to this that I've never seen in a reality dating show.
And the interesting thing too, and I think The Bachelor kind of does this because it's not like so set in stone, but each week we don't know if she's sending home 4 guys or 1 guy.
Yeah.
Like that's up to them, basically, you know?
Which I like too.
And speaking of that point, this past week, Christy did some house cleaning.
2 favorites are gone.
One thing I have to say, I just wrote this down in my notes. This was actually a note that my fiance said. She goes, Kristen Davis has so much Botox, I can't move my face.
Yes.
It's like out of control.
Like if she sneezed, her nose would go halfway across the floor.
She would look like fucking Mr. Potato Head. It would be like up the side of her. Let's talk about Stewgate with Alan and Keith. Okay, so Keith has the idea and mistakenly tells the house, hey, I'm going to make some fried chicken and bring it over to Christy. Well, Alan says to himself, hey, that's a great idea, Keith. What cooks faster than fried chicken? Stew. So he makes some stew, and he brings it over to Christy before Keith gets to. Obviously, Keith freaks out, smashes a glass, does not handle his anger very well. What were your thoughts on how that situation transpired?
I mean, I would say that's exactly what I would do, but I wouldn't be winning any dating show. Let's just say that as well. I have some anger issues.
You'd be like, fried chicken, that'd just take about 30 minutes?
I mean, obviously, you can kind of see the wheels turning in some of these guys, and Keith's one that is very easily to get under his skin. I think I will say this about Christy. She's like the first girl I've ever seen on one of these dating shows that I'm like, okay, I wouldn't mind to like if one of my friends dated her, if I could be in the same room as this girl. She's actually got a really good head on her shoulders. A lot of the decisions she makes isn't because, oh, you caused a lot of drama, so I'm keeping you in the house because of ratings and everything. If you're fucking around, she's getting rid of you, dude. She wants impregnated right now.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of surprised that I know she was married previously, but like, I don't think she needs this show at all. Like, and I would just say based on that, she's probably not going to end up dating the guy because she might just be the type of person. I don't know. There's a couple guys in this show. We'll talk about this probably at the very end, but it's probably like a 3-horse race right now. But I don't know if she's going to actually end up dating any of these guys.
I think the guy, I think he's like a doctor or something that took her to the Atlanta Hawks game.
Marcus.
I think he's the favorite.
Yeah.
The 2 favorites I had got they're fucking gone.
I mean, she basically got tired of fucking around. I think she wanted to send a message this past week. So let's talk about some of the guys that got sent home. First off, Alan.
The best looking dude, bar none, and he has an accent.
Right, and he has a South African accent. Now, you and I used to joke, we're big fans of the show Bar Rescue.
Yeah.
Where John Tapper would come in and do what he called a low watermark firing, where he just immediately fired the worst employee. But we would always joke, what if he did a high watermark firing, where he comes in and fires the best employee, and then everyone's like, what the fuck? If that guy just got let go, what happens with our jobs? Is that what she did with Alan? Did she send him home? Because he was kind of disinterested. But is it to send a message like, guys, if Alan's going home, like, take a look in the mirror because he's.
It was weird. It was like a Pippin migraine game where Alan just basically was like, hey, I care about what the guys think. I don't want to kiss you in front of me. It's basically like Alan's like, I think he has too many 25-year-olds back home that just he wants to bang, and he's kind of just wasting his time with Cindy, which he called her.
God, what a power move calling her the wrong name.
And she still kept him around for like 3. Like, yeah, I didn't know your name. Like, what are you going to get rid of me? Look at me.
Look at me. I'm Alan, for Christ's sake. If I say your name's Cindy, your name's fucking Cindy, you know?
See, I think Alan was like, listen, you know, this is a fun show and everything, but if I'm going to have a kid, it's going to be like an oopsie mistake with a 22-year-old or something.
He got far enough to do what he wanted to accomplish.
Yeah.
You know? I think it was kind of like a good time for them both to part ways. He got what he wanted out of it. She's not getting hurt. She gets to feel good. She, quote unquote, dumped Alan.
But you said you basically just crunched the numbers. Like, he's getting less ass being on the show.
Right. He's losing ass every day. It's
Yeah.
like a stock that's just
Now-
in downfall. You have to sell it.
Now, Matt that also left, who I was not a fan of, you loved. And I did think he was a front runner, though. Basically just fucking like Terrell Owens or Randy Moss to route on this fucking episode and just
Yeah, he
kind
got
of
tired of
gave
it.
up. I don't know what the fuck his deal was.
Matt was like a shooting star. He fizzled very brightly, and then he just completely burnt out. I was definitely out on him halfway through this episode. So the part of the show you're referring to is when they did kind of a Q&A where Christy would ask the house questions about like their prospective future child. They would write their answers on a whiteboard and hold them up. One thing I love about Matt, first off, I've talked about this multiple times, but his occupation is always listed as former pro wrestler. But like, so okay, but do you have a current job? Is what I'm wondering.
And he's not one that is so rich like a Ric Flair that he doesn't have to work anymore either.
Yeah, he definitely is not like sitting on some nest egg. So the question was asked, who would you like to raise your future kids? And I love how Matt, as a still, as far as we've been communicated, former pro wrestler, he does not have a job. He said, I would like my wife to raise my kids. And I just was asking out loud, like, okay, but what the fuck are you busy with? Because you don't have a current job, as far as I know. And that really put Christy off. That was kind of the nail in the coffin, I think, when he said
Well, the
that.
one nail in the coffin was when she asked, do you want a boy or girl? And Matt just says, I don't like this game. And didn't answer.
He took his ball and went home.
And then I thought that was the worst answer until Christy's turn came around and she said, just a healthy child. That's not the fucking question, though. You can't
so
fucking do that. I hate people that fucking, you ask a yes or no question. Just a healthy one. I'm like, get the fuck out of here with that shit.
Yeah, that's definitely not cool. Like, obviously, all of them are like, well, I want a boy, and he can have health complications as long as he's not a chick.
Yeah.
That's not what anyone would say.
The one guy said, I want a boy first, then a girl, so he can protect the girl. I thought that was a good answer. That was probably one of the best answers I saw.
I mean, it's such a loaded question. Yeah, you have to find ways to just say something.
He said a black kid. I'm like, oh, that wasn't an answer.
Better not
but
fucking
okay.
come out white, because then you cheating on me. Like, Keith, why are you? Yeah, stop, relax, dude. I can't wait for next week.
Time, like, Christy is really pretty too, and she's got a good head on her shoulders. I'm just like, why is she on this show?
Yeah,
I don't get it.
Especially when she sees some of the shit, like the stuff Keith does. Like, Keith literally smashed a champagne glass over a stew.
Out of love.
Right.
Sometimes when you love people, you slam a TV or, break something.
I love people that have like very apparent temper problems, the way they'll describe themselves. Keith's like, I'm a passionate man. Like, didn't you get road rage and beat the shit out of a 26-year-old the other day? I have passion. Okay.
I also love that the parents are in it already, so they like cut to them. It's like, Keith's very, blah blah. It's fucking awesome.
I think that is a really cool wrinkle too, because they don't overdo it.
No.
Like, they'll cut to the parents for like one sentence about the guy, and that is a great idea. Like other reality TV shows, Labor of Love, I think, is actually going to be kind of a game changer.
I think the show, like, statistically is set up better than The Bachelor. I enjoy a lot of the things better than The Bachelor. How they're living across the street. How, once again, which is really fucking weird. I can't remember the guy who's the CEO. He's the other black guy in the
Stewart.
He has a chance too, but I hate it. Like,
got a shot.
Yo, Christy's home. Let's see if she gets kissed. I'm like, dude, why are you waiting by the window? That's just fucking weird.
And then Trent was doing it with his shirt off, like staring at him. Like, if she looks over and sees you, you should probably be in jail.
It's just, but I love that. But the guy just left, took her on a date. And most of the time, The Bachelor, you don't know what they're doing. You don't know when they're going to come home. This, you can literally see if they're going to go inside, how long they're inside. That you can see through their window sometimes.
Stewart's date was like interrupted, remember, by Trent and some of those other guys. One other thing I just want to point out, a guy who I think is a sleeper is Kyle, the really tall guy. Although my issue with him is he starts every sentence with, so I'm 6'8" tall.
And he has dumb face. He's got like Eli Manning face.
He perpetually looks confused. Like someone just explained the ending of Inception to me.
Yeah,
That's what he
looks
like.
But I could see him too. Honestly, after this week, I don't know what I'm thinking. It turned me for. I felt like an episode of Lost where I thought I knew something, and now I'm like I'm back to square one right now.
Well,
I
that's
have no fucking
Christy
clue.
wants. Now the guys next week are like, fuck, bro. Again, if Alan goes home, none of us are safe. And I did actually love how she said,
I'm
didn't she
not
say
even safe in my own marriage if Alan went home. My wife could get rid of me tomorrow.
Yeah, your wife's like, well, now that Alan's not doing anything. She sent 3 guys home, right? Or yeah. She kept Trent. That was the only one she kept of the
Matt
4.
Allen, yeah, and she kept Trent, which is
She
Trent.
sent home Matt, Allen, and
on
who
my
else?
nerves.
Who was the third one she sent home? I forgot.
It wasn't the North Carolina guy, was it? Wasn't that when he last week?
That was
the one
the
that
week
drank all the
before.
time?
Dude who came back and pissed in the bushes before he jumped in the car.
God, that's something I'd do.
I can't remember who else she sent home.
I think it was only 2. I can't remember.
Okay. Either way, she's not fucking around. Again, she sent a message. And I don't know how many episodes it has left. I would guess 2 or 3. But I do love the pace of this show. And an hour-long episode format is so good. Like, The Bachelor is compelling at times, but it's 3 hours.
And then they go to Bachelor Nation and ask some dumbass chick, like, what do you think? I don't care. Just get with the fucking show. I got to work tomorrow.
Right. That's why this is great, man. Especially if you have it on DVR, you can just fucking, like,
Damn
watch
right.
this thing.
Scroll through that shit.
It's perfect. Now, the last thing before we move on, we've talked about this before. You don't think this concept would work with the gender roles reversed, right? If it was like a bunch of girls competing for a guy.
For Labor of Love?
Yeah, was that you who said that or someone else?
I would enjoy that. I didn't say that.
Okay. I think maybe it was
never say that. I think it all maybe even be better.
Dare you? We'll blame that on Banner then. But that's the cool other wrinkle, right? Is they can flip it.
I'd be very into that. Absolutely.
I just think the concept is on its surface, it's so crazy. That's what lures you in. But then it's like not that crazy, but it still kind of is at the heart of it.
I think you would have a harder time finding 10 Christies, though. I think it's easier finding 40-year-old guys that haven't had kids. I think it's harder to find, decent, good-looking girls that haven't had kids.
That's a really good point.
Unless they, can't, can't have kids. I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's true.
I'm sure there's some out there. But I think you'd have to have 3 or 4 that have at least one kid from a separate marriage and they want to have another or something.
I'm fine with it staying this way. I'm
sure Alan has some kids running around. I don't think he knows about them or cares.
I kind of want to see Alan as the Christie on the next season.
I would love that. It'd be awesome.
If it's him, you could get a bunch of 26-year-olds to come on.
But that's the problem, though. Then it's The Bachelor. I like that it's 40 and it's listen, this is my last shot.
Yeah, that's true. Because desperation brings out the best in people, as we know in reality TV. Again, we started watching this show ironically, and I'll just be very honest. I'm actually just straight up liking it now. Not even as a joke.
Me and my wife look forward to it every fucking Thursday.
Yeah. As we're recording this, it's a Wednesday, so I cannot wait for tomorrow night when it comes out.
Can't wait for tomorrow. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Look forward to our review next week. I don't think we've got to, maybe one time we've got to talk about this with all 3 of us, so that'll be, hopefully we can do that next week.
Great show.
All right, last part of our show. I'm not even going to make you do Banner's thing. It's our Do You Even Lift Bruh segment, which is our question and answer part of the show. All right, Matt, here we go. After it was confirmed Zack Snyder and HBO Max had this version of Justice League, which is basically the Snyder Cut, would be coming to the streaming platform sometime next year, David Ayer, the director of Suicide Squad, chirped up on social media and said he has interest in releasing the Ayer Cut of Suicide Squad, promising more Jared Leto. Now, this movie, in terms of Suicide Squad, basically started our podcast. After we saw it, we were so
basically, it did start our podcast.
We were so impassioned by it that we looped Banner in and began the journey of the Bro Force Squad. So, Matt, I have a kind of a twofold question for you here. Number one, what are your thoughts on this? Do you want to see it? Would it be any good? And if this happens, is this just getting fucking ridiculous from DC? Every movie that's bad, we're going to have a director's cut come out that you are going to charge me for again, that you claim is bad? What is going on here?
Do I want to see both of these? Absolutely. Now, I do have some things do confuse me. Like, are these full movies? Or are these just cut scenes? It's hard for me to believe that David Ayer came up with this like raunchy, almost R-rated Suicide Squad, and then they just did a bunch of rewrites and then they did like a completely different movie. That just seems like a lot of wasted time and resources. But once again, this is Warner Brothers. It could happen.
The Snyder one makes sense because he had to leave the project, you know?
Yeah, the Snyder one does,
but
still,
Ayer was on it the whole time.
But did Snyder finish the complete movie and then just basically didn't mix it together or whatever they call, I guess, and then Whedon came in and they're like, listen, I want to do a bunch of reshoots?
So what I've heard, it had to hit its deadline. Warner Brothers has said they're spending about $30 to $50 million to finish the Snyder Cut, additional scenes, CGI, actors are even coming back. So his version of the movie is about 3 hours. So they're thinking of doing it as 6 30-minute episodes on HBO Max.
Wow, they're even like Affleck's gonna come back for this?
Yeah, and there's a rumor that Armie Hammer's gonna either he filmed scenes as Green Lantern or he will come back and film them.
So yeah, I'm interested in this. I mean, if you can't do it right the first time, I guess try to do it right the second time. I don't have a problem with that, I guess. I just think there's still gonna be people. There are people out there that like Justice League. I think I'm not one of them. So they're not going to like this one or they're going to like this one less. So you're still splitting. Dude, this is the problem with DC. They'll never put their foot in the ground. It's like, this is our tone. And if you don't like it, maybe these movies aren't for you. And if you do, cool. Be there on opening weekend. You know, Marvel did that. There's some problems I have with Marvel. But Marvel didn't change because Matt Geiger thought they should be, have the villain in there a little longer. Or they should have a little more edgier shit. And I wouldn't want Marvel to do that because that's their fucking thing. That's just who they are. Now, DC is usually darker, and that's where they kind of start doing it, but people bitch. So there's like, now we're going to be lighter. Now we're going to be darker. Oh, we were too light. Now we're going to rewrite the whole fucking movie and then do the first script and then do it again. It's just, you need to just stick with something. And you might have a good movie. You might not have a great movie. I mean, Marvel did this. They all weren't winners, but they just kept ahead with their vision. And that's why it's just way better in DC. But I am going to see it. I just don't. I guess I need to see it to understand what it is. Is it going to be a completely different movie, or is it just going to have two different kind of scenes or something?
Right. I'm with you. I'm obviously very interested. Like, I'll see the shit out of this whenever it comes out. But if the Ayer cut comes out and it's better, I think DC is in a bit of a more precarious position than with the Snyder cut. Because unlike with the Snyder cut, where Zack obviously had to leave because of a family tragedy, if the Ayer cut is way better than the version of Suicide Squad we got in theaters, and he was on the project the whole time, then people are going to be like, well, what the fuck happened, DC?
Yeah.
This version's way better. Why didn't we get this in the first place?
Batman Superman came out 4 months earlier, and people bitched. That's what happened. They're like, we need to be funnier. We need to be lighter.
So I'm worried about DC is probably scared of the backlash if they release it. But also, like, I'm intrigued by both of these, and I probably always will be, but at some point, man, like, are we going to do this with every movie? Oh, there's a better version we didn't show you. Like, what are you doing then?
I don't... that's the thing, is movies shouldn't be like a better version. There's director's cuts, and I think Troy is one of them. That's a director's cut. It doesn't really change the movie. It just adds a little more scenes. And some of the... like, the Hector scene was more... like historically accurate, where Achilles doesn't say anything. He just screams Hector the whole time. But it doesn't really change the movie. These are actually changing the movie, I think. Like,
and
totally.
If I think about, remember when all three of us watched the BVS extended cut several years ago, which is way too long to ever be a movie, but it makes way more sense.
Yep. It actually feels shorter too. Somehow.
Yeah, DC just has to figure this out, because I actually am a big fan of BVS. But the extended cut, you can't drop in theaters. It was like 3 hours, 40 minutes. People hang themselves.
They don't understand. The movie just doesn't come out, then it disappears. You can't just always go with the times. It's like, oh, Deadpool comes out. People want to be funny. I'm like, but these movies, like BVS, is still on TV. So, some people might be watching it and be like, oh, actually, this isn't as bad as I fucking remembered it or something. Like, you just need to have a story. Star Wars does this too, where they just kind of go by the seat of their pants. You need to have a 5-picture story and just fucking go with it, tooth to nail.
Again, if DC ever figures it out, they have the strongest characters, so look out. But based on Birds of Prey, where they changed the fucking title.
God, I forgot about that. Like, literally, like, nothing they've done. Have they, 2 months after the movie, said, okay, yeah, this is still the movie, or like, oh, we're going to do rewrites or reshoots, or we're going to rename the whole fucking movie while it's still in theaters?
You want to know the funny thing? And this was obviously not like their intention, but there's a couple people that I guarantee you saw Birds of Prey when it came out and then went back to the theaters and like didn't know what the new movie was and probably paid to see it again.
Probably.
There's a few people. All right, Matt, before we let the people go for episode 118, anything you want to leave them with?
Banner says to please move over for emergency vehicles.
Oh, wow, I forgot about that. Think about how many accidents we prevented on this show. I brought that up before.
Multiple.
All right, for our Force Ghost, Brian Banner, and the Enforcer in the Paint, Matt Geiger, I'm the Mayor, Jeff Hornacek, and we are the Bro Force Squad podcast. Please follow us on Twitter at Bro Force Squad. If you type in Bro Force Squad as 3 separate words on Letterboxd, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, you'll find us there. Subscribe to us. Check out everything we post on our website at broforcesquad.com. Till next time, Matt and I need to go see if we can get Alan from Labor of Love to come on the podcast. You know he's making the interview rounds right now. He'd be awesome to talk to.
Let's fucking tweet him, see if we can get him.
Yeah, Christy's great. I just think sometimes, there's two alphas, don't exactly mesh.